Alright, welcome back to the Wizard Den. Today, I'm going to be continuing the part 2 of why and how I left Christianity and what I left it for and why. So, I talked about essentially the why I left Christianity, in which I discussed certain contradictions which the Bible is full of, um, the nastiness, evilness of the Yohe character, that is the Christian God, and I discussed overall just my disagreements with believing in something that is traumatic. Everybody in Christianity is suffering from Stockholm Syndrome, in essence, because they are defending their traumatizer, the one that makes them say crazy things such as, we are not worthy and not deserving, and we deserve to go to hell to be tortured for all eternity. But because he loves us so much, he just won't. Because we'll instead go to heaven, where we will be, all of our ability to sin will be taken away, and all we will do is be in slavery, where we will worship him and sing songs for all of eternity. Yeah, about that. So, would you rather be tortured forever or just be a slave with a robot, actually? Because you won't be able to have free will. You'll all be quote-unquote perfect, so there's no improvement, there's nothing, there's no motive to continue. You're just a robot. No emotion, because that's imperfect. If you were perfect, you don't have emotion. There's nothing to get you angry, there's nothing to get you happy, there's nothing to make you outside of the norm, because it is always perfect. Therefore, there is no exception. I hope you can keep up with that. Common sense, I think. So most of occult practitioners will be able to, but maybe not Christians, because they try to denounce that type of thinking. They don't want to think that far. They think it's blasphemous. So they turn off their brains completely and ignore it. And I know I did too at a certain point. So it's not even their fault, really. It's an aspect of Stockholm. You defend your captor, and you are deathly afraid of your captor. So now let's talk about why. I guess I'll talk about how. So from birth, I was birthed into Southern Baptist Traditionalist Christianity, and by the age of 21, I was in the military. I had just came back. I was, I guess what you could call in Christianity, backsliding. I was involved in drugs. I was doing acid, smoking weed, and I had a DMT experience. And from there, I started spiraling out of control, I guess, in terms of my emotions and stuff like that. My mental health. I went into a massive depression. What be it the cause of that, I do not know, but I do know that it conveniently came after the DMT trip. Then I continued to do acid, Molly, smoke weed, and, such moving forward. About 6 months from there, I got into an incident where I had a bad trip. This bad trip included me talking to an ex-girlfriend of mine, who at the time was my girlfriend. And at the time, I believed to be possessed. And the next day when I asked her about the conversation and quoted the words she had said the night prior, she had no remembrance of those words. So there is a strong possibility that something unnatural occurred. Um, there was a lot of dark talk, a lot of, I'm taking your soul, I'm taking it, it's mine, blah 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 blah. I'm taking all your energy and blah 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 blah. You feel that? I'm vampirizing you and blah blah. It was really weird talk that I did not understand at the time. And you got to remember, I was just a Christian. I was backsliding. I did not know anything about occult. So when I hear weird terminology like this, and right now I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact words in which they were spoken and all of this. But essentially what I felt is when I got close to this person, I would feel as if my being was being pulled from me, and it hurt really bad. And when I tried to pull away, it felt as if I was going to die. It felt as if my soul was being pulled out of my body. Okay, it was very insane. It was very crazy and ultra real experience. Eventually, I got the nerve to test that feeling to the max and just pull away and run. And so I did. I was very afraid that night. And of course, like I said, the next day, she had no idea what I was talking about. She put on The Highway to Hell by AC/DC that night. She didn't remember doing that either. It was a very strange night. And we were the club goers, peace, love, unity. So it wasn't in her character either to be that nasty and evil talk kind of stuff. Wasn't really her. It was very strange. I found myself breaking up with her, breaking off from that friend group, stopping drugs entirely, and really separating myself in general, and just secluding myself. I went through a drug-induced psychosis where I, for about 2 years of the next 3 years of healing, where I was very paranoid. I felt like somebody was always out to get me. Something paranormal was, doing whatever, right? And I really went through a lot with that. A lot of trauma from that event. But nonetheless, I wanted to know after that, I wanted comfort from this Christian God. Because we're taught nowadays He is love. He is unconditional love. He is support. And, if you call on Him, He will be there, yada, yada, yada. So I'm calling, I'm asking, I'm praying. And, for 2 years, nothing. 3 years, nothing. I get to a point where I'm fed up. I start studying the occult. I start with the Key of Solomon, because it is the most accessible thing easily. I believe it came in the form of a YouTube video, right? Initially it popped up, some guy talking about the occult and the Key of Solomon. I don't remember who it was that posted the video. I couldn't tell you at this point. That's probably, 7 years ago. So, after that, I got curious. I read the book. Still at the time hesitant, nervous, anxious about demons, still thought that they were the creators of evil and blah blah blah, out to get you. So I looked for angels to work with. I tried, Archangels of Magic. I bought the book by Damon Brand. I do want to preface, I was not psychic, naturally. So most of my calls went unanswered. And I thought, my understanding due to the Bible is that if I call upon them, they'll just be there. Period. Like, they'll come to the physical if I do things properly. And that was my understanding, and it wasn't working. So I was like, what is it that do they not want to interact with me? Why is it that these people practicing magic can get them the answer, but a Christian can't, So I was very complexly confused. Later on, I got a better understanding, of course. I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm gonna start working, and this was a bit of a defiance, right? I was a bit of upset. I was tired of not getting answers, what they call it, nothing working. So I said, you know what? I feel like God, Christian God, is blocking me from finding answers, from being able to interact with other spirits other than Him. And I feel like this is His doing, so I'm gonna slap Him in the face. And I started to deny Him and all that stuff, and then I set out to work with Egyptian gods. And the reasoning behind that was the Old Testament thing with Egypt. So I really went ahead and went towards that. And I had great success. Great. I worked with Isis and Thoth initially, and everything went good, kosher, beautifully. And, I started to grow, I started to learn. I asked for Isis and Thoth, specifically Isis, to help me overcome the fear of hell. And, fear of this Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And I asked for the truth. Beautiful, ugly, whatever, the truth. The only truth. And thus began a really long, troublesome, complex journey. One I would not trade for anything. So it began. I began working with different spirits. Different spirits started coming to me. At a certain point, I had to get comfortable with the concept of working with demons. So I gave it a try. King Paimon was the first one to try to communicate with me. Astaroth was also one of the first ones to try to communicate with me. So I went to them first. Everything went well. Everything was good. I want to also note that it was like every time I seen something good about like King Paimon, I would also see something negative. It was like there was this battle going for me, to embark on this journey and not to embark on this journey. And it was a very back and forth. But I eventually just did it. And King Paimon, he was very polite, very kind. And then it was Belphegor, and it was Astaroth, and Bifrons, and, all these different spirits. And I started working with the Goetic, and everything was great. And I started to learn way more about the truth. They started opening my eyes and opening my soul, showing me what things really were behind the scenes. seeing things through their eyes, essentially. And then I eventually, to a point, got to accepting that my first major portion of my life was a lie. I was traumatized for zilch. Nothing. And I self-traumatized myself. And then I accepted that and let go, obviously, because you're supposed to, if you want to move forward with anything, you need to let go. First, you need to accept everything, then you need to let go of it, and then you need to learn from it and move forward. And that's what I did. Then I continued learning, continue working. I did a whole thing with demons, just learning and growing and evolving. Led to me working with Odin. I ended up working with Freya, Hel. I ended up working with, and Hel is the goddess. It's not a place that I'm speaking of. Okay. And then I worked with Hecate. Hecate is amazing. I do want to say, I was very suspect about witchcraft as well due to my book, Bible, alright? And I also, once I started learning about all the different kinds of magic and seeing what witchcraft has died down to today, seeing witchcraft and, through the eyes of, it's a weak art, and it's not a weak art. It has weak students. So I got to see through a different light that witchcraft isn't really, hogwash. It's something that can be extremely powerful and life-changing in both the physical and the spiritual. And it can be very amazing. And it's about what you make it and what you are willing to do with it and turning it into. But anyhow, just over time, it was a constant evolution, constant learning of information, accepting the mistakes I've made, willing to be able to learn from them and grow and continue forward. And that's how I did everything. I, with an open heart and an open mind, accepted all information with no bias. And sometimes it was hard to do. Sometimes it was easy. Now I've gotten to the point where everything's easy. And I'm able to just listen and hear things and make my own judgments without somebody else having to tell me what it is. And it's been great. Honestly, it's the best decision I've ever made, especially in going to the occult. It's one thing to be an atheist, go from being a Christian believer to an atheist. That's already fabulous. But going from that to the occult is even better, because I learned that the spiritual realm that we want to believe in is real. The possibility of not having to die afterwards is true. It's very possible, and it's awesome. But yeah. Alright, well, that's the entirety of today's video. Peace.